it's just all of these foods are placed on a pedestal and they're the best things that you could have, which is why I absolutely love the title, Toxic Superfoods. It's something that people can relate to, but also make them question, like, wait, superfoods, I know all these superfoods. Like, these are all the things I know are healthy for me. And I guess I have to speak to my own experience. And, when I started going low carbohydrate, I did so for kind of performance reasons. I noticed that it really helped my cycling. I noticed that it was helping me and some of my clients when I would do tests with a metabolic cart. Their metabolism seemed to improve. They used to shift their metabolism towards fat burning more than they were carbohydrate burning, which was great. I definitely noticed some benefits when I went keto, and my brain was working a little bit better. But I really noticed in April of 2019 when I transitioned onto carnivore and I cut last remaining vegetables out of my diet. The thing that surprised me the most was not that I lost a few more pounds of fat and my energy was really, really good, but I just like it was 2 weeks in almost that like there was this like calmness that I'd never really experienced besides just like fleeting moments here and there, like maybe a sunset or a special moment or something. This was like like there was nothing going on. There was just like birds and a tree and everything was fine. And all the stress that I had been worried about and all the spinning around and things that were never going to happen to me just didn't really matter. And that feeling has by and large stayed with me through eliminating some of these foods. And I was continuing to eat the vegetables that were high oxalate foods. And I really wonder whether that really was part of me ditching my anxiety.
That has been the most gratifying and surprising feedback I've had with teaching this. How many people were suffering from anxiety and that lack of calmness. And calmness is one of those words I hear a lot. Like, I can experience calm now and never could before. I personally didn't notice a lot of agitation and anxiety, but I really struggled with like just meditation, like trying to settle the brain down. It just made me exhausted. Like my brain was not working well. And it was definitely the same kind of genre of like, and this non-calmness can be happening in a way that doesn't necessarily feel emotional, because the other way that it was ruining my brain was I couldn't sleep. My brain was waking up 29 times an hour. And I was so exhausted, I didn't even know that was happening. So it's the same kind of neuroagitation because it's a nerve toxin. It's a activator of immune cells. It turns on the mast cells and creates inflammation, which causes these brain problems that can be anxiety, panic attacks, this sort of flat affect or apathy that you get where you just like have to force yourself to care about all your to-do list with things that you've chosen to live your life with, and even your basic things you want in life aren't exciting to you. That's all neuroinflammation, and oxalate can be a trigger directly to the nerves, and because it forms these crystals, it turns on the immune system over and over and over again, and you get this mess from that inflammatory reaction. And then it also destabilizes connective tissues, which adds to pain syndromes, which adds to this constant cycle of inflammation and nerve toxicity, And the thing that gets it going can be this oxalate poisoning from sweet potatoes and spinach and beets, almonds and dark chocolate.
It's
Amazing.
crazy. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Well, we've had so many guests on this show that have come on and have specifically mentioned your name. James Lehman credits you for saving his life. Dr. Bill Schindler says you changed his life absolutely the first time he heard you. I still remember the first time I heard your content on the Peak Human podcast, I believe, with Brian Sanders, and I remember thinking like, uh, this is either bonkers or this is a huge problem. I had never heard any of that stuff. And it really is, again, eye opening to know that some of the foods that we put on that pedestal, like we said, are not great for us. And you kind of mentioned the history of some of this stuff. You mentioned like, the medical profession and the dietetics associations. I think it's maybe not talked about enough, in my opinion. The history of some of this stuff, but you do a great job in your book talking about the history and where this came from. And I'm wondering, like, yeah, why isn't this more talked about today? Like, what happened? Because the studies were there. Everybody knew as far back as like the 1800s that this stuff was problematic. If you had too much of it all at once, it would accumulate. Why is this like a new topic for people today?
Yeah, I wish I had a really good answer to that. I did attempt to answer that in the book and talk about all the changes in the healthcare world and how we got distracted. We get distracted by the latest theory. We have these generational theories where it's all going to be this, and then we discovered the genome and it's all about the genome. Then it's the microbiome and it's this and it's that. And we get so uber focused on the theory, like the whole phytonutrient theory that, oh, plants have all these fancy chemicals that help you and they squelch aging because they get in there and they beat up the oxidative stress. And that was just a little back of the envelope theory as a way of sort of quickly summarizing the initial impression they were getting as they were spraying these chemicals on little petri dishes of cells, which has nothing to do with how it operates in your saliva and your digestive tract and as it goes through your liver and as your body excretes it. Like none of those things are happening on a layer of cells. So it's irrelevant to your actual life experience of eating a food and its effect on you. But we got this, one of the new theories that started in the late 80s, I believe is about that time, was this whole idea that plants are really great. Now, we liked plants at the beginning of nutritional science. For a lot of reasons. And one of them was because the elites realized that the poor people are living on cornmeal and whatever they can scratch out of the earth. And so they have a lot more plants in their diet. The less money you have, you tend to have more plants because you can grow them relatively cheaply. But nowadays, plants are really expensive because nobody grows their own plants. They come in from far away and they rot in your refrigerator and they end up being a pretty bad deal economically. But the history is so interesting from a sort of nutritional science point of view, because back in the 1930s, we already had enough studies with animal and human infant feeding studies where we literally feed the infants spinach. It was very clear from those studies that feeding spinach, high oxalate, sort of poster child food, to infants caused severe calcium and iron deficiency in human babies. We knew this, but right away they were already saying, well, this one outfit, which was the Medical Society, put out this nutrition journal, and they said, we're just not going to call that out because there's probably some good stuff in plants like vitamin A, when we know that's not real vitamin A in there. And there's some other good stuff. And it's kind of hand waving because there's probably good stuff in there. We'll just ignore the fact that it's toxic for humans and especially for infants. And we'll just call it a leafy green. We could have easily have just segregated out beet greens, chard, and spinach. Leafy greens, not worth touching, and all the other ones are fine. We could have done that from the beginning, but already in the beginning, for no reason, without any authority to do so, the experts are already saying, now we don't care. So poor oxalate is the Rodney Dangerfield of science. Like nobody gives it the kind of respect it deserves, even though it's been around, like your little sister is hanging around like the furniture in your life. You just kind of ignore her because she's not the center star of your show. And it's never earned the center star place that it needs to be, except that now it is the star of the plate because these foods like quinoa and things like chia seeds are coming on and pretending they're human food, and they're really high in oxalate, and it is the center of your plate. And we have this level of ignorance that makes that incredibly scary.